All right, welcome back for another episode of the Unplanned Show. Today I have with me Nakul Bhagat. Nakul, please say hello.
Hey folks, this I'm Nakul. I'm in the product for PagerDuty, and glad to be here.
And I am excited to have you on. You've been on some of the other more technical live streams with Mandy and whatnot, really going deep into our APIs and some of the things that are new there. But I wanted to step back with Nicole today and talk about some bigger picture concepts around PagerDuty's APIs. But before we get into that, just want to quickly cover off what we have planned for some of our upcoming episodes. So today we're talking to Nakul. We're going to be talking about PagerDuty's APIs. Next week, we will have Sam Newman on talking about resiliency. Sam Newman, author of Building Microservices, published by O'Reilly. In a couple more weeks, we will have Meg Watson of Spotify and PagerDuty's own Tiago Barbosa on talking about the PagerDuty plugin for Backstage. Really excited to dig into that topic. And then I've just started to line up November 6th. We will have someone on from Orca Security, which is one of the security vendors that PagerDuty works with from an integration perspective. And so always fun to kind of make sure we spend a little bit of time talking about security topics. All right. With
Cool.
that,
I must
let's
say,
begin.
sorry,
What's that, Nicole?
I must say that lineup was perfect. This is something very almost also relates to APIs. So guys, don't miss that. Don't miss this.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be really foundational. There's really three big questions that I want to talk about with you today. Like one is just sort of let's step back and walk through the broad sort of I don't know ecosystem of APIs that PagerDuty has because um, I think there's a tendency for some folks to kind of be aware of just like one slice of the pizza pie, and there's actually a whole rest of a meal there. And so that's kind of one thing. And then also want to talk about like why does it matter? Like what are the things that like across these different types of APIs, why should people be taking a look at those? And then lastly, kind of coming back to what's new. And so that's always just a good thing to have on people's radar. So let's kind of cover that first question first,
Sure.
which is really how should people think about the broad spectrum of APIs available from PagerDuty?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to start with, I think, just an overall perspective, like PagerDuty is big on APIs as well. We believe that we believe in the API first approach to all of our products. We have more than 200 plus APIs and growing as we launch new products. Each of these APIs products will have APIs as well. And APIs is are very important in terms of really helping our customers automate some of their normal day-to-day tasks. For example, if I want to uh, you know just look at how many incidents I have on my team, I can just query that easily using my APIs that PagerDuty is exposed. I don't really have to go through a web portal or go through my mobile app. Even though they are great, they are kind of a significant other of the APIs. But at core, once I am onboarded as a customer to PagerDuty and I set up all my teams, the next stage of maturity, in my opinion, are working with the APIs. And it is really easy. They're not really that complicated. It's not like you need to know, uh, querying around GraphQL, or you have some other nested queries that you have to come up with. It's just plain and simple REST APIs that our customers love. And I like, on an average, we see billions and billions of requests that we get on at PagerDuty. So it can really help our customers come up with their own, automation, proprietary automation, their simple custom automations that they can work on. Like, for example, Our one of our customers uses Terraform Provider to constantly poll our APIs to just to get what the status is, what this change, what does the change look like when it comes to users or schedules, things like that. And if there's any, they would again use our APIs to just override with the uh, normal state of how things should be. So in general, APIs are very, very useful to do something quick without going through number of clicks on the UI. Not that it's UI is not important, but for something that we need to do something very effectively and efficiently, APIs are the is the way to go.
Well, and it sounds like in particular where anytime you might be doing something either at scale, like something you're going to do a lot of
Right.
times, whether it's because you have a lot of different teams, and so there's some kind of task that you're doing you have to do for each team, and
Mhm.
so you can do that at scale through the
Yeah.
APIs.
Yes.
um, or it's some kind of activity, like whether it's reporting something,
Mhm.
polling something. Again, it's like because you're doing it so often, it really
Mhm.
makes sense to look at the APIs. You mentioned over 200 different APIs. I feel like every time I talk to you, that number is bigger. And you mentioned like, plain and simple REST APIs. I want to see if, like, just high level, like,
Mhm.
are all the APIs RESTful APIs, or are there different types? Like, what are some of the most popular ones? How should people think about different ones? And on that note, um, I'm gonna just post here for folks something that you and I have been working on is to also just understand, like, across the user base, how familiar are people with the different APIs, and what might be getting in their way uh, from adopting or using different ones. So we have a really short survey going on right now in the PagerDuty community forums. It is a challenge. So if you care about the points that you can use towards things in the forums, then I believe this is like a pretty hefty, like 100 point uh, challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there we kind of have things broken down, asking people, levels of familiarity or an adoption um, uh, challenges across different types. So how would you break those down? Because we talk about there's sort of event APIs, there's RESTful APIs, then
Mhm.
you've got sort of, you
Yes.
mentioned Terraform. Like, how should people think about all these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think, yes, PagerDuty has APIs, and when I talked about 200 plus, I was only talking about the REST APIs. There are events APIs, V1 and V2 as well. Those are primarily the APIs that our customers or even third-party developers who have created apps, integration apps with PagerDuty, they use to send that signal to PagerDuty. And they need to be like pretty good at scale, and so those are the event APIs that are used. There are the REST APIs, which are just you can use for normal read or write updates, writing into PagerDuty with some data, or creating a new incident, or creating a new team, creating a new service. For those kind of things and abilities, there are REST APIs, and that you can use easily. They are pretty secure. They use API keys or user API keys. And now with the new launch of API scopes, there is even more secure access to our APIs. All of our APIs support scoped OAuth. It's OAuth based on OAuth 2.0, but it introduces this concept of scopes where you can really define register a private app, for example, and then you can define a scope, what that private app can access, what kind of APIs. Can it access incident APIs? Can it access user APIs? Can it access teams APIs? Those kind of, you can define that scope, And then when you fetch a token and use the token in interact while interacting with our APIs, that can it's adding a another security layer or gate, to make sure that the apps are only accessing that they are intended to. Because with API keys, global API keys that we have, and a lot of the integrations used today, there is a little kind of a um, uh, this not disadvantage, but there's a little loophole where I would say it's just used to either read everything or read and write everything across PagerDuty. So just a shameless plug, please move on towards using API scopes. It's much better, and it gives you more control over how you can use to your teams on how you can access APIs. And in terms of what are some popular APIs? I think there are at least five that comes to my mind. One of them is definitely incidents. PagerDuty being, it started with as the incident response as its core product, and now as we move towards multi-product, we have other APIs that are also getting quite popular. Services is the other, the users, schedules, and then we have teams. All of these are the top 5 to 6 APIs, and it kind of gives you this quick overview if for things that you want to know, for things that you just want to say, okay, what are the open incidents that I have on my team. You can use the incident API quickly to just get all of those open ones. There are lots of, again, within the incident itself, there are a lot of APIs that can give you either a specific incident or list of incidents, things like that. Our developer documentation on API references is up to date, so I also encourage all of our customers and viewers to go take a look at them and get all of that details. It's also very easy to, if people don't know where to start, they can start with the API reference documentation. There's a way to start playing with the Postman tool, which is very popular amongst our developer community and developer at heart. Whoever are, they can just access those APIs, they can play around, and get the feel of it, and it's pretty easy to really automate things around. I keep on talking about automation is because you know I want to empower everyone who do their repeated manual task. Just use your favorite programming language and automate that. It's that simple and easy. Take yourself away from that tedious job or tedious task of doing things every time. It reminds me of that movie Office, right? Just get rid of that. Automate it using our APIs.
Yeah, I'm thinking about those TPS reports right
Yes.
now. Because it's interesting you like TPS reports because when you talk about like things you want to know right now, like open incidents, and it's like I'm like, well, if that's something that is a question I'm asking a lot, is it so much that I want to go write that query at that moment, or is it actually that I want to have a dashboard, right? That's maybe
Mhm.
like really customized to my organization and the things we care about, and it's different, but you're able to populate it and pull in um,
Mhm.
the data that you want about incidents or schedules. I'm looking back, you mentioned kind of some of the really popular endpoints,
Yeah.
and so to me it's like it's the TPS report, but it's like what's the live TPS report
Yes.
that is going to take some data out of PagerDuty and be able to kind of pull it in, present it, mix it up against maybe other information that you have, and then it answers those questions for
Yeah.
people in a really real time way. But there's the only way to do that really is you need to have that programmatic access.
Correct. Correct. And it is now just much easier even with API scopes. The admins can define, register an app, and then let the open the floodgate gates in a way where you can just share the credentials of that app, and then folks on your team or different teams, they can start using the tokens to access APIs, and let the creativity flow in. Let all of those teams automate their own stuff in their own way, and you can still be able to control access of all of them. So that's the sweet part about the latest API scopes supporting all the APIs that we have at PagerDuty.
Okay. This might sound like a weird question, but do you have a favorite API? Like, I know it's one of those, I love all my children, but but is
Yes.
there one that you're like, I find this one to be particularly cool or particularly interesting, or I've talked to customers and they have really interesting use cases?
You know, I think right now I have to say I know which one is really kind of popular, but in
Mhm.
terms of my specific API that I really like is Teams and you know schedules, because it kind of helps me maintain my schedules and look at the team. So I always do that.
Okay. So yeah, that's, I mean, is selfishly understandable that, you're looking at your own team and schedule a lot.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's just, I mean, it's a little bit like asking like, what's your favorite Prince song? So it's just really hard to answer. I get it. Um, okay. So, we've kind of talked a little bit about some of the different ones. You mentioned Terraform.
Mhm.
You also mentioned some of the integrations that we have. How,
Yes.
like, there are some integrations that PagerDuty builds directly, but there's a huge ecosystem
Mhm.
where different vendors have built their own integrations with PagerDuty, and they're building those off of the available
Yeah.
REST API, the same ones that
That
any
is correct.
customer can look at, right?
Yeah, yeah. That actually, you made a really great point there. I must say, and I should have mentioned this, that even all these REST APIs that are available today, they're not just for our customers. They're also for our developers who want to integrate with PagerDuty. They are the same APIs. In fact, at times, even our teams within PagerDuty, they use those same APIs, public APIs, to make certain of their own flavor of integrations and things like that. There are no kind of backgates that we use at PagerDuty, just so that we know, because we stand by our API first approach.
Mhm.
We always want to sort of eat our own food, dog fooding basically our APIs. So we just do that. We don't differentiate between, hey, these APIs for our just customers and these are different freshly minted APIs only for developers. No, it's for everyone to use, and the experience will also be the same. In fact, it's also the case in terms of by default, all the limits or API limits and things like that, rate limits, they are the same for our kind of customers and developer community. It's not like just because there's a small developer, well, I will just let you give us only 2 requests per minute, and there's another guy who's a bigger developer, but then we tell them like, yeah, okay, your limit is up by 10. That's not the case. It's the same.
Okay. Um, and so, the that kind of consistency between what customers are using, what um, third-party vendors are using, what our teams are using, just means that also like any of those learnings they're just all getting kind of accrued and shared. The benefits sort of shared across all those groups. Um, the integrations, like for organizations that maybe are less likely to dig in directly with a set of REST APIs.
Mhm.
Maybe their bench of folks who are, um, writing in full programming languages and, willing to sort of be able to take a look at that. Using the integrations from some of the ecosystem
Mhm.
provide a lot of benefit, especially if it's just like you're trying to get to like I was listening, um, recent customer call, and there was clearly a lot of manual work going on between their just overall incident process, and they do want to log everything in Jira,
Hmm.
um, and it was like this whole manual step. And I was just thinking, I'm like, I think our integration could probably solve a bunch of that. And
Yes.
their engineers wouldn't be having to create all of those tickets and then populate all the fields. And there's a lot of pain in that. So it seemed like those integrations, which are all based on the APIs,
Hmm.
are really powerful. Are there ways, like, how do you think about kind of the ecosystem of different integrations that are out there and how people should be approaching those? Are those a good way to think about, like, first point of getting started is
Yeah,
look at
that's
what else you're using and what people are having to manually move between PagerDuty and some other system?
great question again. So I think, and I'm gonna extend this a little bit more in terms of, you know, um answer that from a maturity model perspective as well. Like, as a new customer, when I'm onboarding PagerDuty, yes, there, in my onboarding journey, I would, to quickly test something, I would want to, let's say, use push notifications or SMS and phone calls, but they are not really something that are using our APIs. Once I set up my next level of maturity would be, now that I'm settled in, now that I'm feeling good and cruising at this, try to change a little bit and change your environment around by onboarding APIs, or see how you can leverage APIs. That would be either you are integrating directly your custom code, or you can start looking at your kind of your use cases. Where are you interested in certain ticketing integrations? We have ticketing integrations like Jira. We have Salesforce as well. We have Zendesk. All of these integrations that are available, which are built by PagerDuty, they all leverage our REST APIs. With respect to collab ops, our friends at collab ops are really doing a great job. Integrations like Slack or even Microsoft Teams, they are the also ones that leverage our APIs. And so what we have also seen and noticed, like, all of these integrations that underneath, you know n- and as you rightly mentioned, like, not all integrations are directly working with or integrating with the REST APIs. A lot of them are also event integrations. So
Mm.
some folks will say, oh, well, I'm already using an app, and it's but underneath it's just using our events API. That is good, but it can be better by just sticking with the apps that are using our REST APIs. And most of the PagerDuty built applications or integrations are the ones that are already leveraging REST APIs. There are certain other integrations as well that leverage our REST APIs. But I don't want to just like pick a name because it's not something that's my favorite or something. It's just there are some integration that you have to look out for and look at the documentation about what are the endpoints they are really using other than just the events API.
Okay. And do folks normally find that documentation, with whichever vendor has
Mhm.
built that integration, and they can see?
Yes, like,
Okay.
part of the process is we make sure that whenever the apps come in, the documentation is up to date. There's a reference of PagerDuty integration. They have vendors have their own page that's hosted on their own website and documentation. And then we also make sure that in our integrations catalog, it's mentioned, and it has some, if and when required, they will be redirected to those vendor websites as well.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like there's a review process for
Correct.
the third
Correct.
party built integrations where, the making sure that documentation is available is sort of part of that process.
Right.
Um, okay. You've answered also, like, kind of a lot of that second question, which is sort of the why, right? Around why do these different APIs matter? And you started to get into that around, hey, the event API, super critical. Like a lot of people seem to sort of start there because that's how you're gonna feed into PagerDuty what's happening right now.
Right.
But then you have, when you want to actually make teams more efficient, I'm trying to summarize here, so please correct me
Sure.
if I got this wrong. If you're really trying to make the whole process really hum along, that's when you're probably going to want to look at either integrations or customizing with the REST APIs directly,
Mhm.
because that's where you're talking about starting to stitch together, what's happening with incidents, teams or schedules or users, right? Like all of those parts and pieces that
Yeah,
might need to connect into whether it's a ticketing system or collab ops or some other uh,
exactly.
part of your ecosystem of where people
Yes.
are working today.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. You got that right. Absolutely. It's getting to that next level, maturity level would include onboarding or integrating with our REST APIs, whether it's through, if I were to break that further into what then, um, you know, if you find certain integrations at a high level are just set of templates that lets you do certain kind of activities, and underneath they to for you to be able to accomplish those activities or those tasks, those apps will use the REST APIs. But there are a lot of in a lot of the edge cases, there are apps that are maybe not available, or they don't do the kind of custom job that you want them to do, right? And it's really hard to customize those integrations as well. That's when I think that's the second stage of maturity, where you have a lot of proprietary integrations, a lot of custom tasks that you want to accomplish. That's where again you can leverage the REST APIs to accomplish those. And I really think that that's the best way, where you first, after onboarding, you look at certain integrations that you can leverage. If and then further down in your progression towards the next level of maturity in terms of operational model, you can then look at, okay, what are the other things, those edge cases that you can cover using just your normal integrations, integrations with the REST APIs, and those can be the custom ones. And now we are on a mission to make things even better and simpler every time as time passes, like we did for API scopes, where we simplified the whole UI, we made it even better. We're noticing that now it's customers are taking less time to register an app, and it's really easy. We're slowly seeing an uptick in the traffic of uh, made by those scope to auth apps. So these are all good pointers, and I think I really would be recommending that to look into, something to look into, and how they can leverage all of this together.
Okay. That kind of gets me to sort of that last area, just talking about what's new. Mentioned the API scopes as, a major sort of milestone, which we've uh, earlier this year, kind of in the May timeframe, is when that really first became available. But it was really just the first of many milestones
Yeah.
around this whole area of improving the sort of granular security and how people are using the APIs.
Mm.
Which I really like how you pointed out. What that also really does is actually allow teams to let their users get more creative,
Mhm.
because instead of locking up the API completely, they can now actually provide some level of scoped permission
Exactly.
those teams. And so that's when people are like, who are close to the problem, right? They're like, hey, no, this is the thing that on our team we do every week, and we would really like to automate this somehow. They kind of need, they're closest to it, so they understand what needs to be done a lot
Right.
more. So what else in terms of either just updates in terms of the API scopes, but what else is in the sort of what's new category for APIs?
Um, I think the new category is coming as we launch more products. For example, um, for custom fields or workflows, there will be new APIs available for those products as well. Um, the next thing that I see is slowly but surely we are going to introduce this concept of tiered rate limiting as well. So so that because we got a lot of requests from our customers saying, hey, you know what, I just don't want to create more API keys. It just I just why can't you just increase the rate limit for my API key just from, I don't know, 900 to 1800 or something. And then there's a lot of like tedious process that comes along. Like we would ask, okay, what are the last, just like how you would ask, at a customer support, somebody will ask you last four of your social. We ask last four of your API key. So that we can, just see, look into it, and then we can try to update. But that's again a very tedious process. So we are going to simplify the whole concept of API rate limit. That's coming, and we are going to then introduce sometime in the future this concept of tiered rate limit as well, so our customers can opt into higher limits. But I don't know. I cannot share more details on it because it's still like in the planning process, and how we want to approach it. It's still up there in the air. Um, but yes, those are some cool new things that are that we want to introduce, and so that our customers who are really in need for more rate limits, they can opt into that as well.
Would
So
um, would a good place for folks who've got questions or thoughts, or want to learn more, where would that be? Is it the community forums in the sort of feature request area, or what's any other good places to find out more?
yeah, definitely community and feature request. If you find something in the community, and if you think like, hey, somebody made a feature request and it really looks interesting, go ahead and upvote it, because all the product managers within PagerDuty, they constantly look at that. They also, it really helps them to prioritize things in the roadmap. You know, it's not just about you know about which customer, but we're really, what are the feature requests that can make lives easy, and if they are based on APIs or anything, we'll just take a look at it. And it's at a regular cadence we look at it. So please go ahead and upvote. If not, go ahead and create a new request. And if you guys have any questions, and if you just have, I think forum is the best format to go ahead and ask questions. Our customer advocacy team is pretty good at it. They always keep they're always on their toes, looking for questions, looking to answer and help our customers. They reach out to us. Like, I had one of the people from the advocacy team who just reached out to me saying, hey, I have this interesting question, can you really help me? And I just went ahead and did it. So, and it was around API scopes again. So yeah, like, those are the things that I would do. I would go ahead and create a feature request. I would go ahead and upvote a feature request as well if there's already something that exists, and then we'll take care of that for sure.
Okay. And while you're there, you can take that API survey that I dropped in the chat a little earlier. I also went ahead and dropped in a link to the video from back in, it was either May or June, when you were doing a first intro into API scope. So if you're looking to go a little bit deeper into that, that should be a useful resource. Nakul,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Is there any kind of parting thoughts, words of wisdom that you would share with this audience around
Um,
these APIs?
Keep using APIs. The sooner you start onboarding APIs, the sooner you achieve that, you open up those doors to really, for yourself and for the teams, to just get rid of all of those tedious tasks in your way. and free up your time to do more creative things. So that's my parting thought.
Okay. And if you are interested in the Terraform provider, I recommend tuning in on our Twitch channel most Wednesdays, I believe. Jose Antonio is on there doing live demos, digging into different areas of the Terraform provider, and sort of showing off how to use that. So that is a good place to go if the way you like to interact with APIs is via Terraform. All right, just a quick reminder again, next week we'll have Sam Newman on talking about resiliency from that sort of software architectural perspective. Then we'll be back with Meg Watson and Tiago talking about the PagerDuty plugin for Backstage. And then a couple weeks after that, we will have Orca on to talk about using PagerDuty and Orca in a security situation. All right. Thank you again, Nakul. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and have a wonderful, uneventful rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, guys.